Welcome to 60 Minutes with a Woman, the podcast where we sit down with remarkable women. In each episode, we dive into their journey, the challenges, the triumph, and the lessons that shape them. Get ready for raw conversations, inspiring stories, and actionable insights to fuel your own success. Tune in because every woman's story deserves to be heard. Welcome to 60 Minutes with a Woman. Today, again, we are sitting with an incredible woman, Heather Spence, and we will be speaking about natural soundscape and marine biology. Heather, you have a doctorate in marine biology. You're also a musician and a composer. You've been recognized as a pioneer in acoustic monitoring. You've been featured on National Geographic, funded by National Academy of Science, and you even spoke on TEDx. You blend marine biology, neuroscience, and sound to explore the power of listening. It is a pleasure having you here. Thank you for being with us today. Heather, I meant to ask you, what's your story? Where did you grow up? Tell us more about what did you study at school? And I was curious to know also maybe what kind of instruments did you learn when you were younger?
Yeah, so I grew up in Arlington, Virginia, which is right next to Washington, D.C. And I moved around, but I kind of always felt that I was going to come back. Like this has always kind of been home. And so I play the cello is my main instrument. Although when I was a kid, I started off, tinkering on the piano, and I think the piano is also a nice start because you can kind of you've got like the whole map of the notes right there.
Rather than having the strings, yes.
Yeah. So and then I also dabble in other instruments. You can see like a corner of the viola da gamba behind me, which is an early stringed instrument that's kind of like a cross between a guitar and a cello. So,
is it the one that they play in the Appalachians or not?
I don't think so. This one really, it was very popular in the Renaissance era.
Okay.
And then kind of got not popular. One of the things about it is that it's a soft sound. So as we got towards, wanting instruments to have like much bigger sounds and more like solo playing as opposed to just like playing together in your living room, kind of went away from that more towards the modern instruments would have a much more like clear, bright, strong sound. But now with digital technology and microphones and everything, doesn't matter as much, and it kind of got like now there's a whole group of people starting to bring this instrument back across the US and globally.
That's probably what I thought he was. I know Larry May. I don't remember. Don't call me out on this, but I know they're bringing it back. Like you just mentioned, there's just a trend in music where people want to bring back all the old instruments, and they tend to be sometimes they've been used to play more joyful songs rather than more classic songs. So I feel that people want to bring that folklore back as well.
Yeah.
With the music. So that's awesome. So you grew up in Virginia. You also studied there?
So I went to undergrad. I went to George Washington University, right? So I was just, right over the river. I could take the subway. And that was sort of an interesting moment because I went on a scholarship for music. But they did not require me to major in music with the scholarship. So I was really just exploring sound and from an artistic perspective, but then also from a science perspective. And so I was really interested in finding out how does sound work? How do animals use sound? How does sound work in health? All of that kind of stuff. And so that led me all the way till my final year in undergrad where I was doing my senior project. And my advisor introduced me to the snapping shrimp.
We talked about this one last time. Yeah.
Yes. And so I was like, oh my gosh, there's this little creature and it creates all this noise underwater. And it's so important to ecosystems and sound travels so well underwater. And marine organisms are all like, they have this orientation towards sound. This is perfect. This is great. The thing is that George Washington University, like not located on the ocean.
That's right.
So that kind of, once I realized I was going to continue my studies in marine biology, that led me to more coastal locations. And so I moved around. I moved to Massachusetts, and New Bedford, Massachusetts. I then moved to Cancun, Mexico.
Which you did an incredible work. We are going to speak about this later on, but it's amazing. You left a real legacy there.
Yeah. So then I now I'm just, connected to beaches everywhere, which is great.
Yes, that's so. Just to go back to the snapping shrimp, is
Yeah.
that the name? So the way I got acquainted was that little creature is just because they were speaking about how it claps and disturbs all the submarines and the military
Yes.
activity
Yes.
underwater,
Yes.
which was pretty impressive because underwater there is a lot of noise, and you do not expect this little shrimp of the size of maybe half of a pinky to do that. So yeah, pretty cool. Yeah, pretty amazing. So marine biology, I mean, so you went beyond just research. You literally you were a pioneer in mixing, like we spoke earlier about the sounds of the water and the sounds in nature in general with research. Do you want to tell us more about that? I know you've been I mean, you spoke that you were interested in sounds when you were already in college, but what really got you to think, okay, this is the path I should choose?
Yeah. Well, I think it came from, seeing the need in marine conservation.
Okay.
There was, I could see the possibilities. So as a musician and composer and someone who's very oriented towards sound and noise, recognizing the ocean as a world of sound was already like a great framework for me for like, okay, this is how we need to understand the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So I was already working in that. But then I think another aha moment came when I was working in collaboration with the Mexican Marine Protected Area managers, and just seeing how important it is to understand and protect these areas, but with what resources, And so, when you see, and this is happening globally, right? You have places where like tourism is bringing in lots of money, but that money is not going towards the protections for the very things that are bringing the tourists there. And that can be incredibly discouraging for resource managers and, people who are trying to work with them. And so I was really looking for a way, like, how do we do some like how do we get the information that people need in order to make any kind of decisions about these resources? How do we get that information without spending money that we don't have? And so that led me to explore, like, well, what about listening to the ocean? What if we put microphones underwater? Since the ocean is a world of sound, that information is valuable. What if we can use that as a reasonably cost-effective way that we can get data day and night over long periods of time?
Yes. So how do you record underwater? What's the process like?
So the way that there's a few different ways. A simple way that I sometimes do is you basically have an underwater microphone on a cable, and you just lower it down into the water, and then you attach that to the same way you would have like recording in air. You attach it to some kind of you know device that will record the sound, and then transmit it to you through headphones or a speaker. And that's pretty similar to the process people would imagine you record in air. You just stick the microphone in the water instead. But what I really like to do, and what I think has been really has changed the way that we can think about underwater sound, is long-term recordings. You take a programmable system. And so what I do is I take a system, I put it on the sea floor. It's got a little computer inside and batteries, and you can program it to record continuously or a snippet every so often. And it's got that underwater microphone. And then I just leave it there. So I leave it there, and I go away. And so it's eavesdropping on all the fish conversations and the snapping shrimp conversations with no human presence. And that's very special. So we can get long-term recordings. We can get them during times when humans couldn't be there, like during storms or during the nighttime when, if you're there, you're going to need lights and all kinds of stuff. And it also doesn't have the effect where you have a human there and then, the fish are, for example, reacting to the human being there.
You're speaking about, having a storm or something happening. And I was going to ask you, what are the challenges of recording underwater? Because there must be a ton.
So I think rule number one in marine biology is that it has to do with the ocean. So something is always going to go wrong.
There you go. This is what I mean. I try to picture myself trying to do something like that, and I can only see what can go wrong. Yes.
It's just you just know that's going to happen. You can't really plan for it, right? You plan for many things, but something that you couldn't have imagined is going to happen, and it's going to mess things up, and you're just going to have to go with the flow. So that's, I think, a degree of flexibility and kind of resilience in the face of disaster is just like a necessary part of the deal.
Which is the burden of any scientist, I think, overall, right?
Stuff goes wrong, but like you have to kind of embrace it as like, ooh, the unexpected. Yes. That was interesting, right? And sometimes the best discoveries come out of that. With the ocean, it's not always so nice. Sometimes it's just like, oh, water. Like if you think about it, like the way that we're going about things. So I'm talking about, we're taking things that humans developed on land and then we're applying them into the ocean.
That's right.
So, an electronic programmable equipment with, batteries and sensitive computer parts, and then we're throwing it in the ocean. What could go wrong?
Literally.
So things are actually a lot better now than they were when I was first starting. So, we're talking about like 20 years ago, the technology was in a very different place, and you couldn't just go buy something. Actually, even now you can't easily just go buy something, but you really couldn't then. And so, it was relatively new equipment, it was a collaborative environment, trying things out. And so I had the very, very first time this underwater system, I got it out there. It's on the seafloor. It's hopefully recording. There's no real way to know from shore until we go back and pick it up. And a hurricane was coming. And so I talked to the guy who made the equipment. I'm like, hey, what do I need to do? Like, do I need to go to get this out of the water? Can it survive a hurricane? He's like, I don't know. It's never been through a hurricane before.
Okay.
So I was like, oh no, I got to get it out of the water. But it was off the coast of a deserted, an uninhabited island. And so everybody had already left. And so we're like, well, I guess we'll see what happens. And thankfully everything was fine.
Maybe because a storm will move and it would be more agitated more at the surface rather than at the bottom. I don't know. I feel that, with, for example, and I say that with zero knowledge, right? But when you have I always wondered how fish survived in lakes during winter, right? Especially when it's frozen. But it turns out that the flow of the water and the temperature is not that different from what it is during the other seasons of the year, just because the surface is affected and not the rest. So I'm assuming maybe the seafloor must act the same way. But once again, I have no idea.
Well, so there's two things. I think there's a lot we don't know about the ocean, but two things we know, like rule of thumb. It's always in motion and it's not uniform, right? So different parts of the ocean are different, right? And it's got layers. So what might be happening in one layer may not be happening in another layer.
I see.
That said, planning ahead for putting these things, we anchored them down on something very heavy, right? We don't want that thing to move. And we plan for there being, plenty of currents and stuff, but you never really know how that's going to go. And also it's the ocean. It's got life in it.
Yes.
We've had octopuses come and mess with our equipment. So You just, whatever you plan for.
And once you get that sound recorded, right? Over how long? Usually you do a month?
It can be months long. Could even be like, maybe could be like 4 months, 6 months, and the recorders are getting always better. So, and it depends on whether you're recording continuously or not. If you're recording just in like little samples, then you can make it last longer. If you want to record continuously, you don't have as long that you can record because of the battery power, basically. Yeah.
So what do you do with that data?
So listen to it. So one of the things that's interesting to me about how acoustic information is explored is that we're humans and we're very visual creatures, and so we want to like immediately translate that into a visual,
Yes.
which is fine, and sometimes that helps us to recognize patterns, and like that's great. But I think it's also really important to listen to it in the modality in which it was created. And so, no, it's not exactly the same. I'm not going to be listening to it the same way that a snapping shrimp would be listening to it, right? Like my sensory systems are very different from underwater creatures. But right, like we do, listening is a pretty good skill that humans have. Like we are hearing, is not terrible. And one of the things I like to point out is that we're very visually oriented, but when we're sleeping, we close our eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Our ears are open.
That's true.
Like a sound from the vibration or from hearing it can wake us up from a sleep. So obviously sound is like something important that we can sense, but we're not always paying attention to it. And so our ability to listen to these sounds and then do some interpretations of them from actually listening to them, I think, is really important. Now, one of the things we do is we take that sound information, we might graph it visually. You might look at or listen to patterns over time, day, night, looking for or listening for various organisms, their vocalizations that have a particular quality. For example, like fish tend to have low pitched kind of grunting and cooing noises. So it depends on what you're looking for. But if you're looking for, say, like biological patterns, you might look for those kinds of things, say with fish.
Tell us more exactly about what you do. You and I spoke about that last time, but I'd love for the listeners to understand, how do you convert such a powerful discovery and of sound underwater into therapeutic and holistic healing through mixing it with music?
Yeah. So it really came from my personal experience with it. So one of the ways, well, I'll just say too, like, so I'm very sensitive to sound and noises. And one of the ways that I have developed to deal with that problem, I think, has actually been a fuel to my creativity as a composer. So one of the ways I deal with noise is I harmonize with it.
Wow.
And I remember one time I really startled, like I had this roommate and we were at this like nature camp, and she started using her electric toothbrush, and I started singing with it. And she was like, "What?" Because, like the sound, like if harmonizing with the noise was like my way of like, okay, it turns the noise into music.
So how do you call it? Do you have the two ears? I don't remember how we call those. The absolute hearing something. When you have the musician have that.
Oh, perfect pitch.
The perfect pitch. Is this what you have?
No. I have good relative pitch. I don't have perfect pitch, which maybe is kind of a good thing, since I work in a lot of sort of strange scales and types of music and experimentation. So it doesn't bother me if something's not like a perfect A, because I'm like, it could be a whole range of different cycles per second. So
But you hear the melody and the tempo.
I hear more like sound patterns.
I
Yeah.
see, I see.
Yeah. And so and then I sort of feel the sound, and
Wow.
so then part of that, out of that comes, so it doesn't just happen with noise. I think for me, hearing sounds, part of how I get to know that sound better is by harmonizing with it, by exploring it kind of actively. And so there's there's the listening component, which is critical, right? Really listening, deeply listening to it. And then there's also like the more like playful aspect of literally playing with it and exploring what happens with putting different things together. And so that's kind of part of my compositional process, which I call nature music, which is really exploring the place. It's the process of like collecting the recordings and then really exploring them through truly listening, and then kind of letting those recordings steer the direction of the composition. So then it feels more like a collaboration with nature rather than me creating a very controlled composition and inviting nature to just play a role that I dictate. For me, it feels more collaborative, as if I'm with a group of musicians and we're doing a group improvisation together, and we're really listening to each other, and we're really like playing off of each other's patterns and ideas. That's kind of the vibe that I strive for with the nature music.
Wow, that sounds well. It sounds that you're very gifted, first of all, because you're able to convert what's around you into a beautiful artistic composition, And the thing that is even more thrilling about this is that if you think about it, the sounds that you hear underwater is probably, language. It's basically the language of, you're listening to animals speaking to each other. It's as if you were listening to a song in French or Spanish. I mean, I'm passionate right now. Like, I love it. It's literally, it's no, really, I can't even believe that you mixed both worlds. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you also is that you're not just a musician, you're not just a researcher, you also have this community mindset that I love about you. And this is what I wanted to bring about Cancun, right? So it's called Ocean World of Sound. Do you want to tell us more about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I want to acknowledge my partners. So right now I'm living in the United States. I did live for a time there, and I made some really great friends and collaborators who are there every day, actually going out to the Mesoamerican reef. So I guess I should back up. So Cancun is on the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, and it's located at the northern tip of the Mesoamerican reef. And the Mesoamerican coral reef is the second largest coral reef in the world that almost nobody's ever heard of. But here we have this really amazing reef system, and it's so crucial for this entire region of the world. Well, really globally, but it's this really important place, and many people go and visit there. Right? They go to Cancun, maybe they snorkel. Do they realize like the extent of how important and rich this ecosystem is?
They probably don't, yes.
So Cancun is this very tourism centric place, and when it's actually still the case, but when I first was there, part of why the Mexican government invited me to come work with them is because there was not this source of local marine biologists, because none of the local universities were teaching marine biology. They're teaching only fields that were kind of viewed as very typically tourism.
I see.
And so there's a disconnect of information with the tourists who come to the place between like, okay, we're here for fun and tourism, but maybe not really fully understand what's going on with the ecosystem. But there's also a disconnect with the local communities who are there to serve the tourism industry, but maybe have little or even no interaction with the coral reef or even the ocean at all, just from the way that things are kind of set up there and the dynamic.
Yes.
And so with Ocean World of Sound is an initiative that grew out of my efforts to work on understanding the ocean through sound, bringing in the resource management side of things, doing the music. And it's really a partnership with my Mexican colleagues, and I'll call out specifically Rai Santisteban, who we really together kind of envisioned this as a much broader and community-centered conservation mission, where sound and the sound of the ocean is the way that we help people to connect more deeply with the ocean, be they tourists or be they kids in the local schools or wives of fishermen or other, other local groups. And it's so gratifying because sound is so emotional. And sometimes I think scientific communication efforts become a little bit like, oh, we're explaining something, right? It's sort of like, oh, we're going to explain to you about this situation. Here's a situation where people are invited to have a shared emotional experience, and it might not even involve words. It's like giving the ocean a voice, a platform for interaction.
That's, and if you think about it, obviously people have priorities. They're first going to think about financial resources, obviously, because this is what they need to survive prior to even consider protection of nature. But once you realize that both are intertwined, this is when you decide to indeed, unlock some budget or look for people who are more knowledgeable about the subject and want to preserve the environment. I think that may be the only country I always heard about that has been very keen on putting nature first was Costa Rica.
Yes.
Right? It's since I'm a child, I know they speak about it. I know they take a lot of pride into not cutting all the trees and maintaining as much wildlife as possible. It's just part of their their ethics, who they are. It's really who they are in the country. They're very proud of that. I love it. I think now we're learning all together how to do that across the globe. But it's amazing that they were able to, once again, like I said, pick up the phone and reach out to you and say, hey, what can we want to do this? How can you help us?
Mm-hmm. It's yeah, it's sometimes it can be frustrating because I've never chosen like the easy path. And it wasn't on purpose. I'm not like purposefully trying to do hard things. It's just that sometimes, I'm looking like, okay, here's the problem that needs to be tackled. It's not an easy path to take. And if we're really going to make great progress in ocean conservation and, ensuring, a good future for humans, then we have to recognize that it might not always be like a very great situation, right? And so we have to just work with that, right? It's like, okay, let's work with what we have and figure out how to do the best we can and go from there.
And this is when passion before profit comes handy, because you realize that you're doing this out of love.
Yeah.
Right, not just for money purpose. And what I was on the way to say, and you're not only that, you're picking on difficult situation, but you are also a mom.
Yes.
You have two beautiful babies, so you had to juggle with pretty much, difficulties after difficulties. Yes, absolutely, to get by. But how fun to have a mother like you. Do they understand what you do?
They do actually. So I have a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old, and my 5-year-old daughter, she's actually very helpful. And so just most recently, I was doing a program about plants and sound at the U.S. Botanic Garden, and so she was there at my booth with me, and she can give like the explanation of everything like just as well. So I had like some interactive like fruit instrument and some things people could, it was like an interactive display. And so she's like, oh yeah, and you just do it like this, and here she was explaining it all. So yeah, so the 1-year-old, not quite at that level. Well, yeah, we're gonna work on the walking first maybe, but yeah, but they both love the ocean, so I'm like, that's good.
Oh, I love the fact that you're introducing them to your world. It might be sometimes a lot, it involves sometimes a lot of travels, I guess, and things that prevent you from being close to your family as much as you want sometimes. But being able to share that with them gives you way more room to spend time with them. And like I said, to introduce them to your world. And I mean, what child doesn't love marine life, right? It's all about that. They have cool powers. Like if you think about like an octopus having all these tentacles, or an eel that can, send electricity to its body and vice versa. It's like it's superhero stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting. And I think it's also great to realize that, we know some things, but there's so much that we don't know, and there's room for people to still make discoveries. Because I think school can often be a little bit about like, here are the facts that we know, and and then, I think it's great for kids to see like, hey, I could make a real difference in the field. There's room for me. And I think that's, to me, that's an important angle too. And I will say, yeah, okay, maybe I'm a cool mom and do these things, but like, it's great. I now have like, not only two little like research assistants, but also kids don't have the limitations of like, a lifetime of learned assumptions and, boxes that we put around things. And so, they ask such great questions. The next discovery in marine biology could come from like a great new question that's being asked because that we didn't think to ask before. So I think kids can play a much bigger role in science than they do currently.
I absolutely agree with it. I wish there could be more maybe programs for kids out there, allowing them to get the hands-on activity where they can discover, like you mentioned, ask questions, establish conclusions, and then maybe compare that together. I wish they could have more leadership programs so they feel like they have a space in this world. They don't need to be a grown-up to start making decisions. They can actually be part of it through suggestions or maybe just curiosity. And like I said, this is why for me you're the cool mom, because I literally, like I told you again and again, I was watching all those amazing researchers on National Geographic, and I was like, this cannot be their lives. We're all here stuck in an office or doing like some random society stuff, and then they're out there like having so much fun discovering incredible new discoveries. Once again, every day somebody is discovering about a new insect, maybe new archaeological sites and vice versa. So the excitement is of knowing you might change the history or the world is beyond. Like, yes, I know, it's like I'm gonna be your assistant too. Wait.
Okay,
I'm gonna
great.
be like,
Come on
your
over.
daughter is gonna be, I'm gonna be the assistant of your daughter.
Okay.
she'll be she'll be the executive assistant for you, and I'll be her assistant. I wanted to ask you a question because now we went full circle into what got you to want to be more curious about sounds and how you compose your music. I wanted to ask you also, so you mentioned that you're following and harmonizing with this natural flow. What does that sounds like? Like, do you have now an album that people can listen to? Is that yes?
Yes. Yes. So if you go, so there are links on my website, which is heatherspence.net. You can also go to my YouTube channel, and I also, it's on, it's on Bandcamp, YouTube, etc. One of my albums is Whale Hello There. And so it's basically, it's electronic music that I have centered around ocean soundscapes and voices of various creatures, including one of them is called Boat Motor Jam. And so I take the noise of a boat motor and then weave harmonize with that boat motor to create the composition. So there are those that are sort of clearly in the realm of music, and I've heard from a colleague that it's great music to work out to.
Love that.
But then I have some other stuff that's like a little bit weirder, and some of that's like on my YouTube channel, and including some things that are weaving coral reef soundscapes and exploring coral bleaching and things of that nature that are kind of between like soundscape composition and music and little stranger. So
Well, let's listen to one. You know the feeling? I mean, obviously you know the feeling, but I can absolutely understand what you meant when you said I'm harmonizing many sounds together. It sounds like there is always something coming and trying to take you in a direction and then taking you somewhere else, and then it's deep and you can feel the goosebumps, and then all of a sudden it becomes very motivating, and then all of a sudden you have this soft song behind saying, wait, I was motivated, but what is this? And then you become curious about it again, and it's almost psychedelic or something a little. It's no, it's true, especially for somebody who likes the tempo, like I said earlier, or really the melody behind. The instruments are just, like hitting it with each other, and it's I love it.
Oh, thank you.
I love it. I love it. So your whole album is on YouTube?
Yeah. So Bandcamp, YouTube. There's some links on my website. But yeah, if you want to explore some of the weirder stuff, I recommend going to my YouTube channel. And there's some weird things.
That's really impressive. And the thing is, like, you don't just do it on YouTube. You also organize events, participate to events.
Yes.
People can hire you for events.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us more about that?
Yeah. So I play. I do play, concerts. Yeah, as you say, like different events. I might be like part of like, an immersive experience at some, party or gala or something. Or at a museum or in an art space. So actually, later this month, I'm going to be playing cello and harmonizing with my underwater recordings, in a gallery space. So there's the Museum of Contemporary Art, Arlington. And so they're having an event called Passages. And so there's going to be different artists in different areas of the museum playing with this idea of passages. And so I'm going to be in a room with an art exhibit about the ocean.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it's gonna be a really neat multidisciplinary thing.
How fun. I can absolutely picture how this can literally takes you in a and transcend you in another level of art discovery, right? It's
Yeah.
it's just like it's empowering even the art to be able to discover it was such a beautiful song behind it. And for somebody who wants to hire you, what is the who does your art speaks to the most?
So I enjoy having things happen on many levels. So my favorite is when it's kind of like a family experience, right? And so like kids can connect with it, adults can connect with it, scientists can connect with it, non-scientists can connect with it. Um, and so I'm really open, It's really about inspiring kind of curiosity and empathy. And so I enjoy doing a whole wide array of things, everything from, I've worked with, very, very young kids, to adults, programs in schools, to, motivational speaking for a company. It's like it's whatever. And as long as people are kind of a little bit a little bit open, right? There's a way to connect, and there's some really cool experiences that can be have powerful shared experiences.
In a company, for example, or even one of your TED Talks, what do you speak about? What's the message behind your speech?
So one of the main things that the main theme I usually speak about is listening. And
Yes.
what I think there's a lot of material out there about active listening, which is great. It's usually applied to a conversation. So it's like, okay, well, you're talking, but I'm not just thinking about what I'm thinking about while you're talking. I'm also like really actually listening to you and responding to you before I insert myself, that kind of stuff, which is all great. There's so much more that we can do with listening. And it can shift our perspective. It can get us out of like a block. It can help our interpersonal relationships. So it's a lot of my motivation is sort of fostering this connection with the natural world. I think that a part of that is fostering better connections among humans. Imagine if in every board meeting, before the board meeting started, the chair would get up and say, thank you all for coming. We have a full agenda today. Before we begin, we're going to do a tune in. And everybody closes their eyes and they take a deep breath and they just listen to the sounds in that space.
Yes.
For a minute. It's a shift in perspective that shifts towards listening, and not just listening for words and meaning, but listening for patterns, listening for the unexpected that could totally change the way that a conversation goes or that a decision goes. Those kinds of moments, these are opportunities I'd like people to take advantage of. And I've developed tools people can use and get immediate results.
That's wonderful. I will add a link in the description about your TED Talk so people can see what they can expect. But I can, what I can pick on what you just said is really about, I can visually picture people coming all from their desk or other rooms, rushing from the subway, or maybe having conversation around a coffee that is basically overstimulating. Sometimes the caffeine is overstimulating you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
helps you to stay awake, but at the same time it prevents you from listening. And then I can see them all gathering into this conference room, sitting for a moment and just grounding themselves and preparing themselves to listen to each other and improve the decision making process of the meeting overall, right? It makes a lot of sense, and it brings, even for people who are not spiritual, in this go-go world where we are not in tune with our emotions, we're not in tune with our physical needs and mental needs, bringing back these small habits of grounding ourselves once again is so crucial. Very often you'll see companies trying to improve their working environment, and I feel that what you have to offer is absolutely something that they would need. Hey, reach out to her. Like I said, I'll be writing in the description down below the TED Talk that she did, so you can see what to expect. But I can only see positive outcome from this, honestly.
Yeah.
Heather, I wanted to ask you also questions just to have examples of people maybe you helped. Do you have an example in mind that maybe that resonates even more with your work than other situation where you can say, all right, this person I helped and this is really the outcome that I'm expecting when I'm helping somebody? Do you have a memory like that in mind?
Like, can I give you like a couple examples? Because I think that there's a really there's an array of the scale at which this can have an impact. So you take, on a broader scale of like resource management, okay? We were able to show that in a particular area that that was closed to boat traffic at certain times, the boats weren't going there. This was huge because then they didn't have to go send people to go checking, right? And so this is like, okay, when you have limited resources, you need to direct them where they're really needed. And if there's a place where it's fine, let's move on, right? And so that kind of thing can be really transformative for how an area is managed.
Like regarding boat activities?
Yeah, boat
Okay.
activities, yeah. And then take it to like another level, like reconnection of people with ocean. So it was really interesting to me. So I have a friend, and she used to be a free diver. So what's interesting about free diving versus scuba diving, right? Scuba diving, you make a lot of noisy bubbles, but free diving, right, you can hear more easily. And I played for her one of the underwater soundscape recordings from the reef. Her face just totally changed. You could see like in her whole body, it had been decades since she had been free diving, and you could just she was immediately transported back to that experience just from a few seconds of sound. That sound experience can be extremely transformative and emotional.
I can absolutely understand how, you know, what pops in my mind when you speak about this. I haven't done free diving. I've done scuba diving, but like you said, it's very noisy. You hear it the whole time, so you can't really, you make bubbles, so you can't really connect with sounds. You will be more in tune to connect with the visual. But you know, when you actually you are in the bathtub and you're taking a bath, and you put your head all the way until your ears are in the water, so there is only just the top of your face that's really there to breathe, and even in the bathtub you can hear
Yes.
something.
Yes.
And I can only imagine if people were in tune to listen to noise underwater, and then being able through your music to once again being brought back to it. And oh wow, yes, I can see the experience. That was my little input in that. But obviously your friend had, I can only imagine, especially if this is something she used to do on a regular basis, being able to listen to it again. Wow, it's very healing.
Yes. Yes. And that's something, when people, so I think it's interesting. There's sort of like the experience in the moment, but I hear back from people who have done like workshops with me, like it could even be years later, being hey, I noticed this really interesting thing because I was using this heightened awareness from that workshop, and like here's this sound that I you know was really interesting, and I picked up on it because whatever. And it's like this the excitement over sound. It's sort of like once you hear it, you almost can't unhear it. Once you're aware that it's there, then you can tap into that at any time. And again, it's that like expecting the unexpected, listening for like the subtlety, right? It's not just like the sounds that are in your face. It's like what else is out there? What are those little signals out there that we could pick up on that could be so important, and we might not otherwise know that they're there.
And listen, we are energetic beings. So, this is also how we understand communication. It's through wave sounds and flows and things that we can't see. You know, they say when a tree dies, the other trees know. And this is when you realize that there is just more invisible forces around us than we think. And once we tune into them, this is where we can really unlock this, I'm going to say, cosmic power, because this is what the cosmos is all about, right? It's push and pull, it's molecules, it's many tiny microscopic things that are not visible to the eye, but are probably heat, cold, everything, really. So when you think about music and then music being healing, it makes a lot of sense. People are so in tune to sounds now. When I think about all the green, white, gray, blue noise that's out there, people are really looking to soothe themselves way more through the power of sound. Yeah.
Well, what we end up doing is we're masking sounds with other sounds, right? So somebody turns up their music, you turn up your music, and then they turn up their music, and then you need to wear headphones with your music to block it out, and then you use the brown noise to sleep, and it's like, okay, somewhere in this process, we need to listen again.
Yes, that is true.
And one of the things I tell people is like, okay, you're going out for your walk, you're going out for your run, you know, at least this time, one time, take off the headphones, take out the earbuds, and use it, and you're like, oh, I'm going to be bored. No. The sounds that are actually out there are so interesting, right? Give yourself a sound scavenger hunt.
Hey, I like that.
Okay? It can be fun, right? Like challenge yourself to find certain types, find a high sound, find a low sound, find a sound that you never heard before, or you think you never heard before. Find the most common sound. Try to find like the quietest sound that you can still hear. Like there's all kinds of cool things that you can do that help you not disconnect from your environment, but could connect with it more. Heighten your experience instead of trying to just tune it out.
You know, it's funny because I was looking earlier about soundscapes and what it really meant. And we spoke about natural soundscape, but there is also urban soundscape. There are multiple, there is soundscape underwater, there is soundscape in the forest. There is the wind, there is the water, there is everything. So It's really when you mention about, a scavenger hunt, about, soundscape hunt. How did you call it?
Yeah, soundscape. Yeah, yeah, like a sound scavenger hunt.
Yes, that's right. So, well, basically, you can do that everywhere. It's just like it's literally in the definition of soundscape.
Yes.
So totally true. Now tell me more about before we let you go, because it was an amazing hour that we spent together. But I know your children are expecting you. I wanted to know what's the long-term plan for now protection of the environment and your discovery of initiating people to want to protect the environment through listening and the work you do about around sounds.
Well, one of the things we're working on is a citizen science program. So we've started a citizen science program so that you don't need to have a PhD in marine biology in order to contribute to these efforts. And so we have a 30-day listening challenge that's like an initial training program that anyone can take for free. I'll give you the link to that as well if anybody's interested. It's free. It's just 2 minutes a day, and you learn to tune into your personal soundscape, and you learn to tune into an ocean soundscape. It's kind of an introduction to listening techniques and the principles of ocean soundscapes. And we also have then like a more like intense citizen science training program so that people can actually contribute to analysis of the research recordings. We need more people working on this. And
Yes.
it doesn't, so you said like, oh, you were thinking, oh, you wish you were a marine biologist. Like many people are like, oh, I would like to be a marine biologist. Well, you can, okay? But you don't have to quit your day job, right? There are ways to get involved and to contribute meaningfully. And I think in order to really address the challenges of understanding the ocean, protecting the ocean, we really need all hands on deck. This is not a job for the elite few. This is really a task for everyone to come together to collaborate on this. It's important that we gain better understanding, that we share with each other, that we share ideas, that we're really coming together, that everybody's voice is important, and that together we're also listening to the ocean's voice.
Thank you for first of all making this call, because this is for everybody. This is a call for everybody. And I would say I think the opposition I met when I speak to people, for example, about I stopped being an activist, but I used to be very much for and the animal kingdom and just the nature. Obviously, at some point you have to grow up and you have to find a job and you have to make it happen. So this takes like the second place. And if you have children, it's gonna take even the third to fourth to maybe last um, place. But what I'm trying to say is people feel they feel defeated. Reason being, they see water rising, they see ice melting, they see, I was in Montana. First thing that they said is, you're probably the lucky last people to see the glaciers. We're going to have to change their names because there won't be any, lasting snow for you to see in the next to 20 years. You feel that everywhere you go there is an alarming situation that you might lose what's here and what's there. um so I think people sometimes rather tune off for that reason.
Yeah.
But the fact that you are able to bring and remind people that this is, you're connected either you want it or not.
Yes.
This is healing for you either you want it or not. You can close yourselves in those apartments and then have this fancy lifestyle and think that this does not concern you, but it really does. And it affects all of us and even the generations to come. So thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for smoothing the process. Instead of scaring people and saying, hey, we need to do this, you don't realize, you're like in the comfort of your homes and you don't care. You were able, like you said, to provide this sound wave, these sound waves, and this connection with the ocean that might completely change people's mind. And I think that we need more of that. We need more scientists getting out of their little bubbles and doing the work that they've been told to do, because this is where they get all the grants and all the incentives and vice versa. And maybe have the social work of bringing that to people so we can do this as a community. No pressure on you. So
That's
I'm
great.
kidding, but I'm kidding, but this is very true. It's like in everything we do, everybody wants the world to be good, to feel good. Nobody wants to affect their neighbors negatively, neighbor being an animal or, an environment. But sometimes like they feel powerless. So I feel this is the bridge, like I mentioned before, that people need.
We are not actors on the environment. We are part of the environment. We are part of nature. And so people sometimes say like, oh, we need to minimize our impact. That I think frames it in a very difficult situation. How does one minimize an impact? Does that mean that we're not going to be here anymore? No, instead, I like to frame it as, what impact do we want to have? Let's envision the future that we want that includes humans as part of that. Let's imagine what that might be like. What is the future going to look like? What's the future going to sound like? What is the role of humans in the environment of the future? And then we can start to, once we can kind of envision what that would be like, we can start to try to get there.
Thank you for this powerful message. It's very true. And I want to add also the fact that you have a book for children, right? It's a coloring book for children. How do you?
So that's for free on my website.
Okay, so you offer free books. It's called Marine Life of the Mexican Caribbean, and it's a bilingual book.
Yes.
Spanish and English.
Yeah, so this is an activity book for kids, although adults can do it too if you want. So it's downloadable coloring book pages with activities, and it's all native wildlife of the Mexican Caribbean. So like if you're going to Cancun, there's a way to get an idea of what kind of wildlife you might see there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Do you want to give me one or two ways people can connect with you? Obviously, I'm going to write everything in the description down below, but I want to be able for people who are listening, driving, maybe being busy, they can hear how to connect with you.
The main way is through my website, heatherspence.net. You can also email me at info@heatherspence.net. And you could just, mention that you heard me on this podcast and you'd like to connect about whatever, and that's great. I love to connect with people about the sound and the ocean and making the world a better place. All of that is great. And I'm on various social media, so if you prefer that, I'm on Instagram, I'm Facebook, LinkedIn, the
Connect with your nonprofit as well, right? In Mexico.
And so also if you want to check out Ocean World of Sound. Ocean World of Sound has a website, oceanworldofsound.org. And we have a YouTube channel. That's where you can find the 30-day challenge, for example. And there's a lot of great free resources on there. And also, like, if you're an educator and you want to use some of these resources for your classroom, you can feel free to do that. Or if you want, like, some guidance in how to do that, that's another thing that I do, is, like, turning these into lesson plans for classrooms so that teachers could have something that you can do, like, listening-based or ocean-based in the classroom. So yeah, I mean, definitely connect with us on these platforms. And I also have a newsletter. If you go to my website, you can subscribe to my newsletter if you want to get monthly updates about events, latest activities, tools, all of that kind of stuff.
You're right. And if you want to implement something new in your company and improve the lifestyle of your employees, we spoke about that earlier. Don't hesitate to connect with Heather. And if you have an event even healing events, any type of events that are related to sound, or you think that this kind of sounds would improve your event overall, just don't hesitate to connect with Heather. And she's lovely. I think you know that now.
Yeah, sound baths, art exhibits combined with sound, those can be very powerful. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so very much, Heather, for being with us, sitting with us and sharing so much, educating us, informing us about what you do. You're very passionate, but not only that, you're an activist. You make things happen because you believe in them. It's a real mission. So thank you so much for sharing all of that with us today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me on, and the great questions and really good insights. I really enjoyed your take on things. I feel like this was a really interesting conversation for me as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Heather. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Until next time, stay bold, stay brilliant, and keep building your own success story. If you loved what you heard, Be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it.